Age of Empires 4 has just launched, and it's time to get wet and wild as you reboot those fantasies of pissing off your best friend by converting his army with your priests in a LAN party filled with Hot Pockets. The fourth installment of the series brings 8 fully fleshed out factions, each with their own set of units, technologies, as well as 4 engrossing campaigns that have some of the best historical representation I've seen in a video game. I've already created a few guides to help get you better acquainted with the game, but in today's video, I want to focus on some top tips for beginners that are looking to get their feet wet in campaign, multiplayer scene, or just skirmish with the AI. So I won't lie to you, if you're a veteran of the series, you might not learn a ton here today, and feel free to head on out. But if you're like me and this is the first time you've touched an Age of Empires game or yourself since the second one, this should help you get familiar with the systems quickly. And if this is the first time on my channel, the way I like to do things is by upfronting the knowledge in the video. This way you can decide if it's what you're looking for. So you'll be able to find each of the items I'll be talking about today listed in the chapters on the timeline as well as in the description. Feel free to navigate to the ones that interest you the most or just use it as a point of reference in the future. Also, if you end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe so it can be free of YouTube's dreaded algorithm. But let's get started on 8 useful beginner tips for Age of Empires 4. So our first tip is actually a big one, and while the game does acquaint you with some of the hotkeys, it doesn't really drill down on where to find all of them. So I'm going to show you how to find that, and it's not really even hidden. So for starters, just simply press escape, go to settings, and then voila, you have the most popular hotkeys displayed right here for you. But let's go one step further. You can press this button, view and remap controls, then click common keys, and you'll find the entire list of hotkeys. Sift through this because if you're going to get into multiplayer, quickly building out your base or teching up is going to come down to increasing your APM, actions per minute. Even outside of that, it makes the game a lot easier to navigate as there are so many buildings and buttons to press. So here's a quick cheat sheet that you can use that I'll link in the description and pinned comment in case you get lost, but let me bring you through some quick ones in the game. Okay, so the biggest one that I think a lot of people from other RTSs are going to love is the ability to use the WASD keys to move around without interfering with the grid key system. Simply hold down Alt and you can use the WASD keys to move around. Another big one is Control-Shift-V. This will select all of your workers, and this can come in clutch if you're getting raided because then you can press this, G, to send your workers into cover. They're going to let them move, let them go into cover. They're doing their thing. And once you've done that, they're all in cover, and I want them all to go back to work. Let's press Control H. That is going to go to your capital town center. Otherwise, H would just go to any town center. And then you can press C to have them go back to work. Lastly, pressing the slash key will quickly navigate to your scout, allowing you to ensure you're utilizing him properly in the early game. But these quick little crash course of hotkeys should get you started quite quick. This next one is about the advanced tutorial system called the Art of War. Age of Empires 4 has this nice little set of missions you can do to learn more about the complexities of the game, such as the streamlining of your economy, combat, and how siege mechanics work. And these are by no means easy. They force you to get used to the hotkeys and constantly spamming workers, all sorts of actions. And what I really like about the Art of War is that it gets on you, especially in the 2 economy missions. If you have any idle workers, scouts, what have you, I really like that. And I can't stress how good that is for new players to the game and helping them get used to that level of micromanaging their civilization. I'll be releasing a guide on how to get the gold medals on all of these once I actually do it myself. But again, these are going to be so clutch for learning how the game operates on a higher level. Now, you can't be crushing competitive multiplayer games just by doing this, but it helps build good habits. And if you really don't want to do all of these, the 2 most important ones are the economy-based missions. And this is less than 20 minutes to learn a lot of really good habits to help you become a much better Age of Empires player. Hint: for the basic combat one, use the village to prevent your units from getting surrounded in the final 2 wave of enemies. I've done this one like 3 times and it took me forever to actually learn that. One real important aspect of not just Age of Empires, but all RTSs is unit cards. And the game doesn't do a great job of outlining how crucial this is, especially as you play more games and deal with a variety of different enemy units. So before you can see a group of fearless men-at-arms of the Kievan Rus. On the surface, they simply look like heavy melee infantry. But let's look a bit further. If we look at the small card in the lower left, we get some blips that show us health, defense, and attack, right over here. But hovering over that then breaks it out even further. This is the real unit stat card and where all the information you're going to need resides. Here, you'll see the unit's actual attack and defense profile versus a generic number. So for the men-at-arms, we know that he has 180 health, 5 armor versus both ranged and melee damage, their movement speed, and then their attack profile. Attacks in this game are factored at the total value, including bonuses, minus a unit's armor to equal the raw damage being pumped into them. So, if just say 10 damage were to come at this man-at-arms, he'd mitigate 5 of it and only take 5 actual hit points worth of damage. Lastly though, let's look at this Spearman's unit card. The important thing to focus on, and we'll look at this further in another tip, is the modifier to his damage. That is why it's so important to really look at these unit cards, because just look at the numbers in the lower left. It'd just be doing 11 damage. But in reality, to all types of cavalry, the Spearman does 33 total damage. That's devastating. And since we're on the topic of units, let's pivot to our next tip. And that is unit grouping. It's so crucial to get used to putting things in command groups of, say, Control 1 or Control 2, and I think we're all used to that by now. But in Age of Empires 4, you want to make sure you're grouping properly because of the bonuses some units get. Even further, it can be tempting to just simply slap all of your units in one group. And all of your range in another. I definitely wouldn't do that. If you do, this happens. In this formation, your cavalry will charge ahead and get cut apart, your archers will be too far back to support anything, and your spearmen cannot even use their best ability. So you're going to want to focus on specific units in specific groups so they can get the most out of their mobility, damage profile, or in some cases their ability to deny charges from the enemy. Let's take everything I have here and divide it quickly into groups. In Group 1, I have all my melee infantry, but what you'll note is that the spearmen are in front. If I press V, they're going to brace their spears and will be far more effective against cavalry. My archers are in Group 2, allowing me to move them closer or further away from my front line to best support the infantry. Lastly, my cavalry are in Group 3 to allow me to strategically charge the enemy's flank or micro them in and out of combat to cycle charge the enemy's range units. Learning how to properly group is going to be essential for keeping your units alive on the battlefield. You also have access to these specific formation buttons, but I find that the line formation is only useful on archers, and the staggered formation is only useful when against mangonels or the unique artillery from the Chinese. This here is a quick tip for you, but unit facing is something that took me an unnecessarily long time to realize was a part of Age of Empires. For the most part, it's easy to align infantry how you want, especially holding down Alt and spinning the camera as needed. What makes this so good is with your artillery pieces. If you're trying to set up a hard point for defense and you want to, say, have some trebuchets to cover an approach, they won't attack something unless you right-click on a unit/building, or if you do this. So you select them, hold down, right click, face them as you want, then they'll deploy as needed. Wait for it to happen. And this allows you to have your artillery become an emplacement for any oncoming enemy attackers. This also works very well, with spearmen holding a line before cavalry charge into them, making it so that they can brace properly. With 8 civilizations to choose from, you'll find that some of the more advanced ones, like the Mongolians, play completely different from the earlier ones, such as the English. But if you're just starting out, I'd recommend you really focus on 1, maybe 2 civilizations to learn the game to the best of your ability. If you'd like a list of the civilizations from easiest to hardest, say no more. You can find that linked in the upper right corner. Of course, the easiest way to do that is by getting a lot of playtime on the one you like the most, and you'll pick up most of those mechanics quickly. But before you even dive in to the game, you can get a head start on your learning by using this handy Learn tab up here. This is the same location you can find the hotkey cheat sheet by pressing Read More down here. But on the left, you can explore each civilization and their tech tree. Let's click on the Rus, since I've shown them off a lot in this video. And from this menu, we can see every single bit of information about the faction. The leftmost panel shows us all the bonuses and benefits that the civilization gets. So take Druzina Retinue, allowing the Rus to get access to armored knights earlier. Even further, it'll show each and every unique unit and bonus. Then looking at the center region, we can even find out what buildings are made in what age, and by selecting the little down arrow here, what units that then come out of that subsequent building. There's a lot of really valuable information in this panel. It can be really key to helping you figure out which civilization you want to learn first. Our second to last tip is about passive bonuses that are present on so many things throughout Age of Empires 4. There are a ton of mechanics that work within each faction, as you can tell from the previous tip. So making sure you're mindful of which units have what actions, what buildings get what benefits, whatever it is going to make sure you best understand not only your civilization, but the game as a whole. Let's use an example. So we're playing as the Rus still, so let's look at one of my workers. From here I can see two things. Hunting Bounty, the rate at which I can earn gold from hunting specific targets, and Hunting Boon, the total bonuses I get for having bounties at a certain threshold. Both of these are crucial for the Rus as it's the biggest driving force for their economy. Let's take a look at one of the hunting cabins. And here, let me find one over, let's go right there. Let's look at this hunting cabin. And here we can see that this building is generating gold. And by looking down here, I can see how much per minute. But this extends further to buildings that are within the influence range of other buildings. Let's check out my lumber camp. You'll notice that this little plus icon is not only on the building card, but above the building on the map. Hovering over it will give me all the info that I need. And if you're playing as, say, the Abbasids, this will be crucial to find what's in range of your Golden Age or other building modifiers. One of the last passive bonuses I want to bring up is about relics. So depositing them in a monastery and researching the proper technology is going to allow them to produce more than just gold for your faction, and for some civilizations like the Holy Roman Empire, it's central to their mechanics. Even looking at my warrior monk for the Rus, they get a special ability called Saint's Blessing. And the game is just riddled with these passive bonuses here and there, so make sure you're looking in the areas above the health bar to find out what these are, be they abilities, mechanics, or influence. Tip number one, and the most important thing to know when playing Age of Empires, is really hinging upon a proper unit countering so that your army is working as effectively as possible. This really comes down to combining what we talked about with unit stat cards to learn what effectively counters other units in the game. And I'm going to be looking at just these 4 units to give you an idea of what we're talking about, but this goes deeper with more unit variety and what have you. I have a unit guide that will be coming out shortly that I'll link in the upper right corner where I go deeper into this concept. Let's go from left to right here. For starters, spearmen have got 0 armor and are light infantry, but with their plus 22 to cavalry, they're the best form of shutting down cav, especially in the early game. But those spearmen are countered by archers, since archers get a bonus of 8 against light infantry, meaning 16 damage will hit your spearmen. Archers, though, are ineffective against men-at-arms because A, they are not light infantry, so they have to deal with the initial 8 damage, and of that 8, 5 of it is blocked by their armor. So of course, other units like crossbowmen can counter them at men-at-arms, or these heavy knights. Knights are unique in that they have 2 damage profiles and are, well, heavily armored. So taking a look at knights, you can see that they have a 43 damage lance. Well, this lance breaks on impact when and then they swap out to their swords. That damage is, somewhere around 28, depending on the faction for their sword. But what you can do is you can run your knights away, allowing them to regenerate their lance before charging again into your enemy. This is often called cycle charging. And that's just a crash course on unit countering, but really look to the unit cards to get a sense of what beats what in the grand rock, paper, scissors of Age of Empires 4. As a quick honorable mention, we have the tip of utilizing your scouts. And this is probably the most important tip on the list, but because it's a staple of this series, I felt like giving it this slot as it might be a bit of a dumb moment. But scouts will allow you to quickly herd sheep back to your town center, and will also easily allow you to discover huge swaths of the map quickly. Simply select or press the slash button if you're being cheeky with your hotkeys, hold down Shift, and right click a bunch of times, making a series of repeating S's all on the minimap to have them discover as much of the map as possible. Finding relics, expansion locations, fish, or just the constraints of the land you have immediate access to helps you plan out all of your next steps in Age of Empires 4. And at that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully you get a better idea of some of the important things such as unit cards, countering, passive bonuses, or even simply the hotkeys. Age of Empires 4 can seem like a really high-speed game to get into, especially in the multiplayer scene. But all it really takes is building that muscle memory, reinforcing good habits with your gameplay, and learning as much as you can from each and every mistake you make. There's like a life lesson somewhere in there. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions or need help with anything, please by all means let me know in the comment section below. More than happy to help out as best I can. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one, and take care.